The beginning of a talk is like the top button on your shirt. If it's misaligned, everything else will be out of line. Humans, we're selfish animals. We're all sitting there going, I'm listening to this for me. Now, you might not think that, but we all are. Great communicators are great connectors. They find that spot where they can connect. It's telling a story. Great salespeople aren't known as great salespeople, right? They're just known as, I just like this guy. Well, I end up buying stuff from them. As soon as possible, you're putting a finger on where their struggle is and articulating it back to them more clearly than they're thinking it themselves.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron and Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Benny Fowler, along with my co-host, Ryan Harris. And today we have a special guest, a good friend of mine, speaking coach, helps me write some of my material and speeches if you've heard me speak. Jeff Davenport, welcome to the show, my friend.
What's up, Jeff?
I feel like I'm on sports radio. And I don't know enough about sports to be on sports radio, but I'm tickled to be here.
Would love to just dive into how did you get into writing, speaking? What was that journey like? Where did you really find that passion to doing it? Because I know you coach and you consult on it all the time, so would love to learn a little bit more about that.
Well, I always say my resume is a dog's breakfast. It was like a little bit of everything. I went to graduate school at USC out in California. I'm so sorry, you're Mr. Notre Dame.
Fight on.
Good.
Fight on.
Come on, man. Yeah. Good. 30 minutes.
No, I studied screenwriting, and I wanted to be a screenwriter. And so I was like, I'm going to make my way in Hollywood, and really not much came out of it until sometime later. I ended up writing some TV movies with my writing partner and I. And so I thought, well, that's where I'm going to head is into that. But then I started doing more and more public speaking, just kind of unrelated. And I had enough people come up to me and go, "Oh, you seem to know what you're doing when you're up there." I said, "Well, thanks, I appreciate it." And they'd say, "Can you help me do that in business?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I can." And so I started doing more and more coaching and then writing speeches for people. And so I've been doing that now for, over a decade. And I really love it. I'm passionate about communication. And I always tell people, I work with all sorts of people, whether they're CEOs or I was just out with a bunch of information systems people out in California last week, and just all walks of life. And I can't believe I'm doing what I'm doing because, to be honest with you guys, when I was in high school, I was the shyest kid in my high school. Wow. I was a wallflower. I was voted least likely to be remembered. I was just Mr. Nobody. I wanted it. I did anything I could to blend in. And to think now that I do lots of public speaking and I train other people to communicate is just, I imagine it would be if y'all know somebody who was like the worst athlete growing up and then they went pro. And you go, that guy? I look in the mirror sometimes and go, that guy? That doesn't make any sense.
I would say you're a master communicator. You've put in your 10,000 hours and even more. And you're probably starting to pattern recognize now, where do people go wrong when it comes to communicating their message?
It's sad to say there's about 10 ways it goes right and 1,000 ways it could go wrong. I find, though, if I had to, what's top of mind for me lately is I just over and over when I'm working with executives, when I'm working with anybody, it's the beginning. Two things. One, if it's not powerful, you're going to have a problem. And two, it's a wasted opportunity. I always think of it as the beginning of a talk is like the top button on your shirt. If it's misaligned, everything else will be out of line. Mm-hmm. Wow, and so nice. I'm constantly, this is the methodology I go about with anybody, is that your opening should generally follow this structure. And this isn't straight from my brain. It's sort of a consolidation of a few people's thinkings, but it's empathy, authority, and agenda. Empathy meaning, what do they need? There's something that's keeping you from accomplishing something. And so you put your finger on that pain a little bit. And then you transition over to authority. And by authority, what I mean is, why am I the right person to be heard right now on this? I've been looking into this for the last couple of weeks really intently. Mm-hmm. And so then the people go, all right, this isn't just the CEO going, hey, we're going to talk about these things. It's the CEO going, I've already been thinking about these things and having this conversation. And then you transition over into empathy or agenda, this. Over the next few minutes, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this. That structure works constantly. Humans we're selfish animals. We're all sitting there going, I'm listening to this for me. Now, you might not think that, but we all are. And so if a communicator can get as soon as possible to that, what are you needing? How can I help you? And it's that kind of mentality that every speaker should have.
You're talking about connection, really. You're connecting first with the audience and then giving them reason to continue to listen. Outside of a slam dunk open, getting on base, where else can people find connection points in either presenting or introducing themselves to somebody?
You're always looking for those relatable moments. I think another way to establish a connection early on is not just fact unloading with someone or a group of people. I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. It's telling a story. And it's a story is something with a beginning, middle, and end. And that story, there's all sorts of science around this. It establishes such a connection through mirror neurons with the other person. There is what's called neural coupling, that when I tell a story, especially a personal story, there's that your brain is firing the same way my brain is while I'm telling that story. But it just provides this very unique connection point right there. And I'd almost guarantee you that when both of you met your wives, when I met my wife, and we're sort of starting to establish those connections, we told some story, or she told some story to us, and it was like, hang on, we didn't recognize it. Nobody waved a flag and went, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But something happened there. Something big was happening there. So stories are very important.
Stories are important. And I think also what I heard from the connection piece is that asking the right questions. And I think it's something that I like to pride myself on, is not the weather or, the cities that we lived in, but what's been the best part of 2024 for you, or what are you super excited about as you are finishing up the summer? Ask them what's been the best part about their day.
That's right.
You get more than a yes or no answer.
You're very good at that. You're very good at that.
Yeah,
and we want to be genuinely curious humans.
Yes.
Genuinely curious humans. And I think that's Brene Brown says, you can't hate someone up close. Meaning we hate people groups, or I don't like them politically, I don't like this, I don't like. It's hard to hate someone up close. And when you ask questions of someone, and good questions, real questions, and in business, it means not just asking like, well, tell me about the time that you were most embarrassed. It's, well, how is this reorg? How are you feeling about it? Like getting to some emotional language there, I think is really, really important. Great salespeople aren't known as great salespeople, right? They're just known as, I just like this guy. And then we'll end up buying stuff from them. It's that, I think it's empathy is as soon as possible, you're putting a finger on where their struggle is and articulating it back to them more clearly than they're thinking it themselves. I think it's Nir Eyal talks about you're offering painkillers, not vitamins. And so if you can articulate that as soon as possible, that's great. As soon as possible within a sales meeting, if you can talk to the person who you're talking to and tell them a story of someone who is somewhat like them, who faced similar who had similar goals, similar challenges, and they found a way, through your product, through your service to achieve those, that's going to resonate with that audience. So I would say the empathy portion is as soon as possible.
Yeah, how should people frame fear?
Well, first off, recognize that there's a reason that you probably feel that for one reason or another. There's this old trope that everybody fears public speaking more than they fear death. And anytime someone says that, if I've got a little gumption, I go, I don't think that's true. I think it's true only because everyone tells each other that.
Yeah.
And so we're all told that you're afraid of public speaking, right? Not everybody. So first off, I think it's a bit of a canard to say that this is like the worst thing in the world. I bet you there's been a time in your life when you overcame some sort of fear. Now, it might have been when you were a kid. It might have been when you went off to college. It might have been when you decided to take a class that was a little bit over your head, and you did it, and you accomplished something. In the words of Chip and Dan Heath in their book Switch, it's focus on bright spots in their life. You've overcome fear before. Oh, no, I haven't. Yes, you have. Like, let's find that spot, and then let's apply it to this. When I can get them to feel a little bit of confidence, like at first I'll go, do this with your hands. They're like, this feels weird. And then they start doing, and then it becomes a little more natural. You watch the penny drop. And I know you guys have seen this in professional athletics. You've watched some really great coach who challenged you to try something a little different. You're like, this isn't going to work. There's no way. And then you're like, holy cow, that worked. It totally worked. And you go, oh, then you're like, you'll go to that coach and go, what else you got? What else you got?
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in the inside out philosophy. Amy Cuddy in her TED Talk talks about this. She has a great book called Presence, but her big thing that she comes back to over and over again is obviously our brains impact our body. If I'm nervous, I'm going to sit folded up, all that kind of thing. Well, you can try to change your brain and that'll affect your body. But her studies show that the opposite is true as well. Meaning, if I am feeling unconfident, because I still deal with insecurity issues, if I find that I'm speaking to someone who's intimidating or in an intimidating environment, I find myself folding up. And I have this bad habit where I rub the back of my neck when I'm nervous. And I have to catch myself. And what I tell myself is, if you want to be confident, sit like a confident person. So I'll kind of force myself to, sit, or if I'm standing up, like square my shoulders and stand like a confident person. And dadgum, I'm telling you, it works. I can just tell you guys, I can tell your listeners, it works.
You hear it. You can hear the difference.
Yeah.
It's strange. And so what happens is, not only do you hear it, the big thing is I hear it. And my brain is going, hang on, who's this confident young man? It's me. Holy cow, it's me. I'm shocking myself. And then it becomes you. Amy Cuddy says, fake it till you become it. Like I've tasted and seen, this is a true thing. Yeah. And so I'm happy to pass it along to others. It's not mine, it's hers.
I love it. As we wrap up here, I'd love to know, what's the advice that you would give in terms of communication or meetings to the audience right now? Just 3 quick tips in terms of whether they're getting ready for a sales presentation, whether they're getting ready for a keynote, whether they're getting ready to communicate something with their significant other.
Empathy. Going back to Duarte, empathy. Can I look at the other person and genuinely not just know what they're feeling, but care? Like just care. Mm-hmm. We're all humans. We're all living a life of struggle. So I would say lead with empathy. I'm a little hesitant to say it because it sounds like, yeah, lead with empathy. No. I mean it like connect with that other person. The second thing would be build that opening around empathy, authority, agenda. And maybe with that, I'll connect that with the closing. A lot of times when something's over, it's, I guess that's all the time we've got. So, all right, have an intentional closing. Summarize what you said. Hey, real quick, before we go, just remember we talked about this, and this. Give a headline that has some aspiration in it. I really feel like if we act on this, we're going to get to what we're wanting to. And then whenever you can, bring in a story. Everyone's brains light up with stories. And I realized this many, many years ago. The audience is living a story right now. And by audience, I just mean whoever's on the other side of the table. They are living a story right now. And the reason you're having a conversation with them is because that story, to some degree, within the context of what you're talking about, is not going to end well. And I just mean like left to their own devices, that this could drift into something problematic, or they're not going to meet their goals, or whatever it is. Think about their current story. Think about a better story and lead them towards that better story. And just think in terms of story terms. And yeah, I think those would be the main things. But really the banner over it all is give a rip about the other person. Give a rip, even if it's cold, calculated business. I think any business leader, any human being needs this. We're all a bunch of humans talking to other humans. Be kind, be generous, be thoughtful, be empathetic.
This has been incredible. What an incredible time.
Jeff,
y'all
appreciate you joining
us. Y'all are great gentlemen. I can't tell you what an honor and a thrill it is to spend a minute, let alone however much time we spent together. So thank you guys. Awesome. And by the way, you're both, for what it's worth from my little perspective, you're both wonderful communicators. You're engaging and fun. And so appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gridiron and Growth with your co-host Ryan Harris and myself. Big shout out to Big Up Studios and Streamline Media for all their help with everything that we do. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Please leave a review and please send us any questions at the gridiron and growth pod@gmail.com.